In 1876, in Kentucky, meat literally fell from the sky. Not rain or hell, and not animals, actual chunks of meat. What makes this story so good is that people witnessed it. Newspapers covered it, scientists studied it, and we have preserved samples today. This isn't folklore or creepypasta, this actually happened. This is known as the Kentucky meat shower. By the end of this video, we would walk through what happened, what people saw, what scientists thought it actually was, and the explanation most researchers now agree on. I'm going to take us back to March 3rd, 1876, in Bath County, Kentucky, a place near Olympia Springs. Picture it as a rural farming area. There wasn't any factories nor airplanes, no modern infrastructure, just farmlands, woods, and small communities. One of the main witnesses was a woman named Miss Crouch. At the time of the shower, she was outside making soap. While she was outside, something incredibly strange starts happening. Pieces of something starts falling from the sky. Not one or two pieces, but dozens. People described it falling like snowflakes, but instead of white flakes, it was just chunks of flesh. Some pieces were small, others several inches across. The chunks landed on the ground, the fences, and the surrounding fields. What's important here is to recognize that there wasn't a storm, there was no birds that they saw dropping prey, and no tornado. Just meat. Witnesses described the chunks as red, wet, and flesh-looking. Some said it smelled unpleasant, like rotting meat. Others were brave, if you want to use that as a word, to taste it. And they compared it to like venison or beef, which does come into the story later on, so keep that in mind. The pieces covered an area roughly 100 yards by 50 yards, roughly a football field, which is pretty large. This wasn't just like a tiny little area. This was everywhere. It covered places. It was a whole section of land. People gathered to look at it, some collecting samples, others were just confused or disturbed. I would probably be the disturbed one. Pretty quickly, the news about this weird flesh-looking thing that fell from the sky started spreading around towns. It gained attention really quickly. National newspapers picked it up, and major publications like the New York Times started reporting on it. Since this was the late 1800s, a time when, yeah, science was advancing, but there was still mixed speculation. People started coming up with their own explanations right away. Some theories was it was a strange atmospheric phenomenon, or that it was blown in by a strong wind. Some said it was biological. Others thought it was like manna from heaven, from God, which I don't know if I would be eating. It's the same as milk and honey, but it's okay. Others leaned into more of a dramatic or humorous explanation. But what is important is that scientists actually examined the material. It wasn't just like a rumor or a legend, like they had like real proof that this is happening, and they're like, we're gonna test it. So in early testing, several scientists started examining the sample under a microscope. This is where things start getting really interesting. Multiple researchers independently concluded that the substance was animal tissue. Specifically, they identified things like muscle fibers, connective tissues, cartilage, and lung tissue. That already rules out a lot of ideas that this was like a type of fungus or a jelly or an algae. It was actual meat. The scientists suggested that it might be a lung tissue from a mammal. Others looked at it as a cartilage. Either way, it clearly came from an animal. Years later, a preserved sample was rediscovered in Transylvania University. It was stored in alcohol with the label linking it to the Kentucky meat shower. Modern attempts to extract DNA weren't entirely successful. The sample was old and contaminated, but it still supported the conclusion that this was genuine animal tissue. At this point, this is what we know. Something really fell, it was really meat, and people weren't exaggerating. And if it wasn't from God, where did it come from? Back in the 1800s, people floated a lot of ideas. One theory suggests that it could be a nostoc, a type of jelly-like cyanobacteria. Don't quote me on that. I am not a biologist, an architect. I am. This type of bacteria would expand after it rains and can look organic, but that didn't hold up because nostoc doesn't have muscle or cartilage. Others joked about something like a meat meteor or cosmic debris, but there was no scientific evidence that supported anything coming from space. Some suggested that tornadoes or strong winds picked up animal remains and dropped them later, but there was no storm that day. There was no distribution pattern that really matched that idea. For a long time, the mystery kind of sat there. It was weird, unexplained, and perfect folklore. until a much more grounded explanation gained traction. This is where things get a little gross, but it starts to make a lot more sense. The most widely accepted explanation today is vulture regurgitation. Yes, vulture regurgitation. Here's why. Vultures, especially turkey vultures or black vultures, are common in Kentucky. The vultures have a defensive behavior. They vomit partially digested food when they feel threatened or startled. They do this to scare predators or make themselves lighter so they can fly away faster. When vultures do this, often other ones nearby follow. So imagine a group of vultures startled midair. They regurgitated. Suddenly, chunks of partially digested food start falling from the sky in a wide area. This theory would explain why the pieces were scattered or different sizes, and that they were clearly animal tissue, and explained why it looked like it rained meat. Scientific America points to this as the most reasonable and biologically supported theory. It kind of sounds ridiculous and really gross, but it makes more sense than all the other ones, with the evidence and all the other theories that this one kind of fits the narrative a little bit better. So why does this work, other than the regurgitation? Is dead animals, which explains the variation in tissue types. Second, they often feed together in groups. And third, as we learned, they can regurgitate mid-flight. And fourth, multiple vultures can do this all at once, so it could look like a localized shower. This also supports why the sky was clear, there was no storm recorded. The event was brief, it wasn't like it was hours, it was a very short rain of meat. This wasn't a reoccurring phenomenon, we haven't seen something like it again. It was just a weird convergence of animal behavior and circumstance. So why are people still talking about this? Why am I talking about it? Even as a solid explanation, Kentucky meat shower still sticks in people's minds. It's been covered on radio shows, history podcasts, it's been covered in museums, articles, blogs, and local Kentucky history segments. It's one of those stories that sits right in the intersection of history, science, human curiosity, and the bizarre. And honestly, that is why it's so memorable. It reminds us that reality doesn't always behave the way we expect or the way we want it to. So yeah, meat really fell from the sky in Kentucky, and it wasn't divine punishment or manna from heaven. It wasn't aliens or a prank. In conclusion, it was probably just a flock of vultures regurgitating in a group, and then people ate it. So that's the weird, strange history that I know. And apparently it's pretty, um, I don't know. Comment down below if you would have eaten the meat. I'm a picky eater, so I would not have eaten it, but I feel like I know some people that would. And maybe I shouldn't be friends with them. Just kidding. But yeah, thanks for watching. Another short one probably. I actually will find out when I edit this if it's short or not. But these are intended to be like 30 minutes long, but I talk too fast. So I just need more information. Also, let me know if there's any other weird history that you know about that's your favorite, and because I always need ideas. Reddit isn't always reliable. But anyways, thanks for watching. Y'all have a beautiful day.